We are getting ready for training camp, counting down to camp. I'm Aric DiLalla alongside the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater. Steve, it's hot outside. We got our short sleeve shirts on.
Yes.
We're going to spend the next few weeks here talking about some different topics, getting people ready for training camp, what they need to know. I figured, why not start with the older guys coming in, ready to make an immediate impact. We'll get to the rookies. They'll get their time, Steve. We'll get to the year two guys, a lot of different topics. But the Broncos, it wasn't the same sort of splash that they made last year in free agency, but they still made a lot of big-time additions. I mean, you're talking about guys like Malcolm Roach, John Franklin Myers, Josh Reynolds, Brandon Jones, Cody Barton, Zach Wilson. I mean, a lot of guys that I think could make significant impacts. When you hear that list, Steve, who stands out to you as a veteran guy that you think could come in and really make a difference for this team?
Yeah, well, me as a former defensive player, I look at that position first, man, and whenever you can get one of those big defensive linemen that wreak havoc in games, and we got that in John Franklin Myers, huge guy, great personality. I think he's going to be a great leader on this team. He has everything that it takes to help this defensive line get to the next level. We have some very talented players on here, but he may have been the missing piece to the puzzle here.
Yeah, and he was that kind of draft weekend trade. They viewed him almost like another draft pick. He's going to help guys like Zach Allen, DJ Jones. You bring Malcolm Roach in, too, who had the best run-stop rate of any interior defensive lineman last year. But John Franklin Myers, when you talk about him, he's consistent, Steve, and he's got that relentless motor, 12 quarterback hits a year, 3.5 sacks in each of the last 3 years, and then he's averaging around 5 tackles for loss every year. So you just know what you're going to get with him. And he said, I think it was a couple weeks before the end of the off season, was I've just got this relentless motor. I don't quit, and people aren't willing to match it. I mean, that's what you like to hear, right?
Oh, that's what you love to hear. And also a player who plays a majority of the plays and is not on the sidelines, because many times you have defensive linemen, they'll only play 40, 50, 60% of the plays, but I think he plays a higher percentage. He has been playing a higher percentage of plays, and that's exactly what we need. We need, when the big players are coming, we need the big guys in there. We need our best players on the field and being available. So he's been that in the past, and I think he'll continue to be that way.
Yeah, he's got the attitude you want. Roach is another guy, 600 snaps over the last 2 years, so he's out there a lot too for a big fella. Yeah. Steve, staying on defense, I know Brandon Jones is a guy coming in at safety. You lose Justin Simmons. I mean, he said himself those are big shoes to fill, but the Broncos think he's an ascending player that can take the next step in his career. Yeah,
I think only one year he started all of the games. He's played kind of spotty the other games, but he's played quite a bit. And he's a very talented player, very fast. You can use him to blitz a lot. Also in the slot to cover receivers. He has that quickness, that short area quickness that's required to cover receivers in the slot. So he can do quite a few things, and I think he's going to be a big help to this defense. But I don't think one person will be able to replace Justin Simmons. I think we're going to need a couple of guys to do that.
That's for sure. I mean, Justin, obviously a great player. It'll be interesting to see how that defensive backfield pans out. You mentioned him blitzing. 5 sacks in 2021. So he can do it. He can bring some pressure. We know Vance Joseph likes to bring that pressure.
He does.
Steve, you mentioned covering guys in the slot. Maybe somebody we could see line up there. Josh Reynolds kind of came in that second wave of free agency. He had 40 catches, 600 yards, and 5 touchdowns last year. He was kind of that wide receiver 3 in Detroit, but maybe a bigger role here in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, you never know how Sean is going to utilize him. Sean is very creative in his offensive play design. And the one thing that I know about Josh Reynolds is that he's going to come out and play. He's going to bring that same attitude that he had in Detroit. And he was with a team that he was with that team going through a similar situation as we are, where we're trying to get on track. And Detroit, they've turned the corner now, and they're one of the better teams in the league. And I think he can help a lot of our players to see, hey, how do you get there, with the work ethic and, to make sure you're taking care of what you have to in the books in terms of homework and that, so you know your assignments. But I think he's going to play a huge part in this revitalization of the offense.
Yeah, and he kind of did that with the Rams too, right? I mean, he's seen some teams that have struggled and then found success. I think when you look at him, you look at John Franklin Myers. I like those guys that got a little something to them, Steve.
Yeah,
they bring that to the locker room. I guess to wrap this up, This is such a young roster, right? And Sean Payton has talked about the energy, the enthusiasm, the competition. But when you add vets at specific spots, what sort of role, what sort of impact can they have on a young team?
I think they can have a huge role, and I think that the more players that you have that are really good players or great players, then the higher the competition is going to be in training camp. The more guys are going to want to be in there to go against the defense to try to make the defense better, and the defense is going to make the offense better. So when you have a bunch of good players who actually practice hard too, practice the way that they're going to play in the games, it makes a huge difference. And I think that's what we got. And we started doing that last year. We started practicing the way that we're going to play on Sundays, and it showed off. But I think they still got a little ways to go, and hopefully they'll get there this year.
Yeah, we'll see it on display in training camp. I'm excited to see some of these guys get pads on, Steve. Some of these defensive linemen, they need the pads on. This is just the start of our look at training camp, and we'll be back with much more. For Steve Atwater, the Hall of Famer, I'm Aric DiLalla.